In this video, I'm going to show you step-by-step instructions on how to replace the battery on the iPad Air 2. Now, it's important to remember that the screen on this is a bonded display, which means the glass and the LCD are bonded together. That makes it very, very fragile to remove, and cracking it could mean an expensive repair. To prevent this, I put it on the hot plate, and it's been sat here for a good 15 minutes at 85 degrees C. At that temperature, it's not going to do any damage to the device, and it's just going to soften the adhesive, making it hopefully easy to remove. I'm going to start by adding a suction cup onto there, and then I'm going to lift it. I'm just lifting it slightly, sort of prying upwards. Whilst I'm doing that, there's a little gap what's already made because this battery is actually swelling up. I'm going to add a little bit of isopropyl alcohol down the edge there. I'll add some on this bottom edge as well, and the top edge. The Air 2 is probably my least favourite screen to remove because the adhesive is very thick on the top and the bottom. I imagine that the battery that you buy will probably have one of these little thin plastic sheets with it already. If you take it off and then cut it down into a small size, it's best to avoid the plastic guitar picks on these because I think they're a little bit thick for removing this. So I'm just going to insert it into that gap that I've created, and I'm going to start running it down around the edges. I'm not inserting it too far because you can separate the LCD and the glass doing that. And then I'll add a couple of drops of isopropyl alcohol onto it whilst I'm working around. Any resistance, add some alcohol, probably pull it back a little bit just to like sort of a cutting action that we're doing. And we're just running it through to separate the adhesive from the screen or the adhesive from the chassis. Because as you can see, if you look here, there's a bit of the adhesive what's sort of stuck. It's neither attached to the screen nor the chassis, so I'm going to grab hold of that bit there and I'll try and pull it out, if that makes sense. I don't know if it does. So if we can pull it out, it just makes it a little bit easier, and it means it's not going to stick back down as soon as it closes up again. So I'll pull out as much as I possibly can. It should split on the button like that. Yep. And then we'll come back to the top. The hardest bit about this job is hands down removing the screen carefully. And if you're not confident, honestly, just take it to a professional. A professional should accept responsibility if the glass cracks. We do that in store as well. This isn't an advert for my shop, by the way. Don't worry about that. Continue with that sort of cutting action where the adhesive's thickest at the top. And then once we've got that edge, we're just going to spin it round. Okay, so the screen on this one actually pulls up like that. So I am going to run down this right-hand edge as well. I'll run some alcohol down it. This is nearly gone. Look, I can pull it and it comes away. This is always the easiest edge as well because I can get my finger behind it and it sort of comes away. And now that I've got a little bit that I can grab hold of, I'll just pull that adhesive out as well. So now that all that adhesive's removed and out of the way, it means that we can open up the iPad just like that, and that's how it opens up. You can see this is a spicy pillow. It's a little bit swollen, so it means that it's definitely the battery what needs replacing. Let's go over to the workbench where we'll carry on working. It's always a good idea to put something like a mug behind the screen so that when you lift it up, we'll remove that off there, and then you can lift it up and that'll just rest against the mug so that it doesn't fall over. The next thing that we're going to do is isolate power from the battery to the logic board. So we'll remove this screw here, storing it safely for later. And then using that thin piece of plastic that we use to pry it open, I'm just going to insert that like that, isolating power from the device. This battery is out of juice, so I'm not going to mess around making sure that it is turned off, but it is a good idea just to press the power button or touch the screen to make sure that it's actually off and isolated. Now, there are 3 more screws holding down this shield here. Carefully remove those and store them safely for reinstallation later. Then we're going to take some tweezers, lift up the shield and store that with the screws. Now we can get our spudger, plastic prying tool, whatever you want to call it, disconnect the LCD and the 2 touch connectors here and here. Be careful when you're removing them because you don't want to ping any of the components off what's hidden under that tape, and certainly do not use metal tools to do that. Now that that is all removed, we can remove the screen and store that very, very safely so that it doesn't get damaged whilst you're working on the rest of the iPad. If the iPad's still warm, you can probably go ahead and remove any of the adhesive that's stuck on the back of it. And I'm just sort of rolling my thumb over that and peeling carefully because I don't want to crack the glass on these edges. But yeah, the adhesive's all removed from that. It will leave like that residue of adhesive behind. There's not a lot you can do with that. Acetone will remove it a little bit, but you need to be careful because it easily leaks into the backlight. So it's best just to leave that, in all honesty. It will stick fine onto new adhesive. So now that screen's off, we're going to get it back onto the hot plate just like that. And like I say, most of this job can be done on the hot plate. It's only for the sake of the video that I was moving it over to the other place. And I'm just going to add some isopropyl alcohol all the way around each cell on the battery. Obviously this is made up of 2 cells and 1 BMS, what runs along there. So we're going to run it around just like that. So I've just cut another piece of that plastic film, and I'm going to run that underneath the battery like this. And I'm just sort of cutting the adhesive directly underneath it, working my way through like that. I'll work around this part now, chop all that adhesive out. It's a bit awkward, honestly. It's not an easy job. Once you've got hold of the battery, you can lift it up a little bit, but you don't want to bend it too much because these batteries can be a little bit volatile, especially when they're swollen. And if they've got charge in them, it's probably a good idea to just wait until it's fully discharged before trying to remove it, especially if it's in this condition. I'll add a bit more isopropyl alcohol, and then I'm going to do exactly the same again on this cell here. I think the last time I made a video similar to this, the battery had actually been swapped before and it came out really easy. So it wasn't a very good example, but this is exactly how I remove iPad batteries. On Pro models, it does actually have a little pull tabs, what makes it a bit easier. But on the old iPads and the old Air and Pro models, you still get this this horrible adhesive, which is quite awkward to remove. Sorry if the camera's unsteady, it's because I'm using this plastic like a little saw. But now you can see that this battery is free, it's released. Right, to get the battery from under the little connector there, you want to get yourself some curved tweezers like this. Most repair tool sets will come with them, and because this is on a hot plate, it's really easy to lift up. And I'm just sort of getting between the chassis and the logic board, and I'm going to just carefully lift up. There's no really important parts underneath that, but you just want to lift it up slowly so that it'll come out just like that. Very, very easy. Trust me. Get it out and dispose of this according to your local recycling instructions. Don't throw it in the bin, don't throw it in a pond. It is harmful. Now we're going to get a fresh number 17 X-Acto blade, and we're going to run it along where we've removed that adhesive. Very conveniently, it's just as wide as the adhesive strips, and we're going to remove all the adhesive that's left behind from there. You might find that there is still a little bit of residue, but the purpose of this is to get as much of the adhesive off as humanly possible before we clean it up with a little bit of acetone. Whilst I'm going about with the 17 blade, and whilst the battery is removed, because this is the safest time, I'm going to run it along the edges as well. This is because we're going to apply new adhesive. I'm not going to apply glue. I think everybody, if you've watched this channel before, you know my opinions on gluing iPads, and we just don't do it because it's dirty. It's not good. It's not how it should be done. There's not any glue what's holding it down when you remove it. So why would you replace it with glue? If anyone's got a logical argument for that, then I'm quite happy to hear them out. But for sure, I know for a fact that you don't need glue. Anyway, run carefully along the top, bottom, left and right edges, removing all the adhesive. And then in a minute, we'll get the new battery out. But first, let's get some acetone. And I get it in these little squeezy bottle things. Don't put it on hot plate because it'll all evaporate. And you're going to remove all the leftover residue. The good thing about acetone is, unlike isopropyl alcohol, which just sort of retards the adhesive or softens the adhesive, the acetone just like melts it and breaks it down so that it's very, very easy to remove. You can see that there's barely any residue left. I'll do the exact same thing on these edges as well. That's going to get rid of all the residue, all the dust that's left behind, and keep it nice and clean, ready for our new adhesive to go on. So just cut strips of 5mm Tessa adhesive, right? It needs to be the Tessa stuff. Honestly, it's just much better than any other double-sided adhesive that I've ever tried before. Don't know what happened to my voice then. Yeah, just push it down, make sure that it's sat down nice and flush, and we'll do the same on the other edge. You know, on this edge, put it so that the tape's just edge to edge, and then rub it into the very corner like that, if that makes sense. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't know. Now, one long strip along the top. Don't worry about covering the sensors up because we can chop them out in a minute. Same with everything else. You see how it's overlapping at the top. We're just going to cut that out. Just give me a bit of patience. It looks bad at the moment, but in the next minute or two, it's going to be fine. This is a great way to stick iPads down because you don't always have the adhesive kits in. That's why I'm showing you. We do have some adhesive kits for this, but if you do it this way, like you can do this on just about any iPad as well. Now take a single-sided razor blade and just cut into your corners. Same along this edge. And cut that edge and then just peel off the bit what's left behind. This is like arts and crafts at school, isn't it? Don't forget the sensors at the top. Just cut around them. You got to guess a little bit where they are, but that's where it is. Tell I might have done this before. That was a good guess. And then that one, you can see where that one is. Get it out of the way like that. Cut around this corner. You don't want to leave any tape like sticking out because it will stay. Cut overhanging there. That'll be too thick. And then on this edge, I'm just going to run the blade along like this. Pulling off any leftovers and just cutting it perfectly to size. Cut that corner. Cut it around that bit there. And then the last bit is just this bottom bit where the home button will stick. You just want to go around the edge where the metal is. Just follow the metal. I think I've been promising that I'll show you how I stick these down for ages. That's how we do it. You can do it the other way where you stick the adhesive to the back of the screen, but I've found that this is a little bit easier, just to make sure that it sticks flat. This is ready now for our new battery. I think for iPads, these are literally the only batteries that I'll use higher capacity batteries in the device. That's that plastic stuff that I was talking about. It always comes with them. The other thing that I've noticed with aftermarket battery adhesive, you're not going to get genuine batteries. Never, ever, ever. I just won't use them anyway. That adhesive, what comes on them, is absolute pony. It's garbage. To combat that, you can use the 5mm tester, but because we've got it, I'm going to use 10mm tester. I'm going to cut some nice long bit here. Way too long for what we need. But I'm going to stick it on the top of the battery, just there. Then snip it off. Honestly, don't use that stock adhesive what's on there. The battery will move around inside and it will start swelling up and you'll be replacing it very, very quickly, especially if kids are using the iPad because they just run around with them, shake them about. So just be aware, use some good adhesive. Like I say, these batteries that we use, these are the X-cap ones from Workspace. And the thing what I like about these the best is that I don't have any problems with them. There's many like pro batteries that I've used over the last few years where 6 months time they come back for warranty. I give a 12-month warranty with any battery replacement I do. And that's because we've tried and tested loads and loads of different ones. And I'll stand by it. Like if we have a batch what's bad, then they all come back at one time, then I'll stand by it and I'll just swap them out. It's just sort of one of those things with business. That's how it goes. Right, same again when we're reinstalling this battery. We're going to get under it with the tweezers. We're going to lift it up just enough so that we can slide the battery in underneath and make sure that it sits into the little hole in there. It's awkward to show you on camera because you can't see it, but did you hear it snap in then? Hopefully I wasn't talking over it. I've done a lot of talking in this video, I am aware. And you want to make sure that the hole on the battery goes into the little grommet what sticks up in the chassis, and that makes sure that it's lined up. Make sure that it's lined up there before you stick it down. But that battery's now installed. We've got the adhesive on there. Let's go and get the screen back on and make sure this thing works. Before we reinstall this screen, make sure that you're isolating that battery. This battery, I'm guessing that it's going to have about 60% charge on it already when it turns on. That's a guess. I've never used this battery before. Let's play a game if you want. What battery percent is this going to be on when it turns on? Let me know in the comments. I've just noticed that I've left a little bit of adhesive over there, so I'll chop that off too, because that's going to get in the way. So we'll peel off this leftover bit of adhesive. If it's very thin, it can be awkward. Obviously, this is going to be dead awkward now. There we go. So we can get our old screen now. We're going to just plug it in, making sure that the battery is isolated. Push down on them connectors. And finally the LCD one. Make sure that it's all lined up first. And then remove the battery isolating little pick tool. You can get specialist tools for them, but I've found that little bit of plastic is the right thickness. Just be careful if they've got sharp edges on them, like because it can be awkward and it can damage the connector on the motherboard. Right, so now that we've got everything in place, I'm going to go ahead and install the screw for that. That's in. Let's go now with that shield, get that in place, and then go ahead with the 3 screws that hold it down. It's probably worth not tightening it down tight because I'm holding it one-handed here. I know I said at the beginning to use the mug, but I'm not using it. I'm holding the screen with one hand and then doing the shield and screws single-handedly. But yeah, just make sure that it's all lined up before you tie it tight. That now means that we can close this up. That's always good. It's especially important when you're replacing a battery on an iPad to make sure that it turns on. Go ahead now. Make sure that there's nothing stuck inside the iPad screws or anything like that. There's lots of magnets in iPads, so it's always worth doing a quick check to make sure no stray screws, pieces of glass, anything like that has got inside, because that can pop or damage the LCD. And then once you're happy, just go ahead, remove all the adhesive. Oh, I said 60%. It's actually on 79%. I was miles off. That's a shame. If you got 79%, if you guessed it right, actually guessed it right, then you get the top prize, which is absolutely nothing. Alex has just said that we could, you can get a kiss off Nave. Anyway, with that thought out of my head, I'll carry on pulling off the adhesive strips on the back. You know, this is whenever you get a brand new roll of Tesseract, because it's been stored in a relatively damp condition, it's always crap to peel off, and it peels awkwardly. Make sure that it sticks in at the bottom first. Did you see that? I was lining it in at the bottom, and then the rest of it will follow all the way around until it looks something like this. Hey presto, we have got a new battery in this iPad Air 2. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.